today is the first day of what's going to be a major 2-day severe weather outbreak across parts of the eastern U.S. This is really going to target mostly the Mississippi River Valley and also parts of the Ohio River Valley. And this is going to be for a damaging QOCS line of thunderstorms spawned from a really strong cold front and a very, very strong trough. We're seeing a 10% Sig 1 chance of tornadoes over the Mississippi River Valley, maybe parts of western Kentucky as well. I do agree with this risk, and this risk probably wouldn't start to unfold until the mid to late afternoon and evening hours. Then we also see a little bit of a second risk down here in parts of southeastern Alabama, and this would actually be really late into the night where this would unfold. I wouldn't expect this to unfold until probably after 3 a.m., 4 a.m., somewhere around that time frame. For wind is really going to be the main driver of this risk. We have a big area pretty much centered on that same area where we are expecting that greatest tornado potential as well, where we could potentially see winds up to 80 miles an hour. This is also in our River Valley region. We also have a 30% Sig 1 chance outlined a little bit further from this. This is also an area where these winds could be really strong, but I think anything west of the Mississippi is going to have probably a much lower probability of playing out. And then last but not least, our hail risk. Our hail risk is going to be quite a bit more isolated than the first two and is really going to be put down here in the southeast. We also have our hail risk, which is going to unfold later in the night, and then we have the one which is going to unfold at the same time as pretty much everything else, probably around the mid to late afternoon, evening hours. Not really expecting to see that big of hail with this. Not going to be anything over 2 inches in diameter, I think. So what we're going to be looking at today is a very strong low pressure system moving eastward across the U.S., draping a very strong cold front. It's going to have a lot of flow straight into the back of it. That's going to do a couple of things. That's going to make those winds not only stronger, but they're actually going to last longer and they're going to be further back. So we are going to have that skinny, very strong line, which is going to pass through very quickly. But because of this, it means that those winds are going to be a little bit more long lasting and prevailing. So with this is what it's going to look like around the morning hours. Not really much going on here until we get closer to the afternoon. Then we see hints of this really strong line starting to get spawned right along that cold front. And then, like I said, anything west of the Mississippi, I think is going to have a much lower probability of playing out, but anything really on it, probably within the first 20 miles to the west on it and then east of it, is going to have the highest probability. By now, we're definitely seeing that risk of spin ups along the line at its peak right around the evening hours. So anywhere between 7 to 10 p.m. I think is going to be the peak of our tornado threat, along with damaging winds. Now it's really when our moisture and instability parameters are going to be at their greatest. After that, everything is kind of going to just be degrading, but because our shear and kinematics from that trough are going to be so favorable, I think we'll definitely be able to maintain a risk of at least damaging winds primarily as we go through the night into Monday. And then when these storms cross into the Appalachian Mountains, things are going to change a little bit. They're definitely going to start to struggle in this primary portion, but we are going to see a little bit of a resurgence in the south as they go into what's going to be a much more favorable sector when I show you the significant tornado parameter. And supercell parameters, you're going to be able to see that pretty easily. Then there also is a chance of a couple of discrete cells from warm air advection right in front of this, and also a 700 millibart shortwave moving through that we could also see our tornado potential get hiked up around that time. That would be in that time frame from about 3 a.m., 4 a.m. to probably sunrise. So it's definitely going to be something to watch. And then we're going to go into Monday, which is going to be a whole nother monster. So definitely want to look out for that video on Monday tomorrow. And this is a breakdown of our ingredients. We're seeing that very strong low pressure system with that cold front draped down, very, very sharp and fast moving cold front. We've got 60s on one side and 30 on the other. That's a 30-degree temperature difference with a cold front. This is how fast it's moving. This is kind of wild. And because this is moving so fast, we know we're actually very, very confident that we're going to get a strong line of thunderstorms from it, but it also could undercut a lot of that convection or just kind of wipe it out. And it's not really going to let the ingredients accrue in front of it. You'll see these pressure tongues right here. That's going to be our cold front. And this is the main driver of it. Something in the earlier couple of days leading up to this event, there was some concern that there wouldn't be enough moisture. It looks like our moisture problems, for the most part, have been solved for this, at least what we were thinking we were going to see originally. We thought we weren't going to have even mid 50s dew points, but now we're having high 50s dew points all the way up towards northern to central Indiana. And then if we go towards southern Illinois, western Kentucky, we're seeing low 60s. That's kind of why I think this area from low Illinois, western Kentucky, down into that Arkansas, Louisiana boot border is going to be the peak of our area, because we're really seeing kind of a perfect combination of shear values, moisture, and convection right there, also coupled with Cape. But something we do notice, our moisture does not extend that far eastward. That's why those risks are very circular like this, because these storms are really just going to run out of moisture very, very quickly. Then, of course, in the south, as we go into the morning hours, we see that our moisture is pretty strong, along with some other things like our Cape. Our Cape is going to be really solid down there during that time, easily up towards 2,000, and then those discrete storms possibly coming on shore. But what I think is going to be peak time for our line, probably around 7 p.m. 0Z, seeing a nice plume of Cape as well of that moisture right up along our line, probably widespread 500s as we go north. But as we go south into what I think could be our primary risk area, we immediately jump up towards 1,500 to 1,000, and then our 3 Cape is going to be pretty solid there as well. But as you go eastward, things run out pretty quick as you go into the night. Still a little bit of Cape here. Definitely going to be possible for there to be severe warned storms with this as we go into the night. I just think that probability that is going to be quite a bit lower. So main thing, better shear up here towards the north, closer to that low. We get that middle range where there's really that perfect combination of ingredients, and then worse shear down here in the south, except when we get closer to the morning. That's kind of when that perfect range shift is a little bit to the south, but mostly better thermodynamics down here. That's why we're seeing that hail. So that's really a summarization of what we're going to see with that. So now moving towards really the main reason why this event is going to be possible, even though some of our other parameters are going to be muted. It's going to be because we have a massive trough. You don't see a trough like this very often at all. And we're going to start to see that short wave. Here it is right here. That kind of coincides perfectly with our risk area right there. It's in a really perfect position to get that area to work. This is probably going to overspread our cold front right around that 21Z, 0Z time frame. So that would be mid to late afternoon to evening. And then this is only going to ramp up even further. And this is actually why Monday is expected to be the bigger day of the two. But this is going to provide a lot of forcing and maintenance shear for our storms, even our 700 millibar winds. Quite good during this time frame. Not as much 700 millibar flow across our main region, although as we do go later into night, we do see a bit of an uptick. So that's why 0Z to 3Z is what I think is going to be prime time mostly. And then also in the morning hours, when we see that secondary risk area down here in the southeast, 700 millibar flow starts to overspread that as well. And then really the only area that I didn't touch on that much in this video is going to be the couple of storms we could get out here along a warm front in other parts of the southeast. We're going to have a bit of a wave moving through. You can kind of see it right here with this increased throw at 700 millibars. And there are going to be a couple of storms close to that warm front. Shear's going to be pretty good. Cape's going to be pretty good. Moisture's going to be pretty good. There is going to be a chance of maybe some small hail, maybe some damaging winds, and then maybe even a tornado with that. So those are definitely something to look out for as well. And then the last thing with this hasn't been getting nearly as much attention as it should be, in my opinion, but there's going to be a blizzard going on in the northern parts of the US as well at the same time in this. And this is also going to include a really hefty ice storm, or at least that's what we're thinking. With this blizzard, it's very possible that parts of southern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the Michigan Peninsula see upwards of 35 to 40 inches of snow in a 36-hour time frame, and potentially even at sometimes we're seeing snow accumulation of 2 to 3 inches per hour. And this is all while it's gusting 40 miles an hour up here at a minimum. It's probably going to be more at that. So there's going to be a blizzard going on. And then with our ice storm, currently we're seeing that it's going to be a little bit south of our main snow accumulation. That's not really a surprise though. So northern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, and then parts of northern Michigan. And in this band right here, we're seeing widespread accumulation of freezing rain above a quarter inch. And then as we go further to the east, so drawing a line starting right here in southern Wisconsin, this is when things change the worst and things get closer to widespread 5 inches of accumulation. And once you get to 5 inches of accumulation, that's really when you start to see those more catastrophic impacts and a lot more power outages. So that's definitely going to be something to watch out for along with our severe weather. Really unfortunate that we're getting this at the same time as what's expected to be a pretty high upper echelon event. So yeah, this is kind of unfortunate. But moving away from just looking at our convective line models, that was the NAM, by the way. Here is a weather sounding from the NAM, and this is from what I think is going to be our peak area. This is really close to Memphis. Actually, we're seeing 66 over 64 dew points. That's going to be solid enough for these storms to do probably some pretty big things. We're seeing Cape close to 1,500. We're seeing 3 Cape over 100. That's really good for tornadoes. And we're seeing effective inflow of 408 SRH and 51 knots of low shear, coupled with 50 knots of effective shear. Really good for storm maintenance. And then, of course, our hodograph, big curve, then it loops out, gets a little messy. But this is just the air that's going to be flowing into a big line, which I have no doubts will be able to at least keep its maintenance as it goes through that most moist and most unstable area in those first 3 to 5 hours after sunset. So really not much to look at here. There is a big thing that the low-level jet up here, very fast, cranking at around 50 knots, is going to be right down to the surface pretty easily. Also, these storms are going to be surface-based. This tells me that in this area, there's a pretty high probability of some spin-ups. I think damaging winds isn't even a doubt. With a setup like this, we're seeing 50 knots of flow. That's going to be pretty easily brought down to the surface, and those downdrafts. Hail, not as big of a threat though, although we're seeing our mixed level Cape a bit risen. But with these strong QOCSs, hail, it's not going to be the main factor unless you get really solid thermodynamics, which we actually are going to see down in the south. Also better lapse rates down there. Not really expecting much over 2 inches in diameter of hail in the south. But yeah, this is a sounding that's going to be very favorable for intense severe weather of all hazards. And the final look is from our mesoanalysis. And right now, this is our central low. This is real-time stuff. This is actually what it looks like right now, right over Kansas, already at 992 millibars, our central low. This is going to continue to deepen maybe a little bit as it moves up towards parts of northern Illinois, northern Indiana. So yeah, this is definitely looking like things are on track. Our 500 millibar analysis, we're seeing what's going to be our jet max over here right on cue in parts of the northern Rockies, making its way towards its destination. And then over the next 6 hours, we're going to see a pretty big deepening in this towards its final form. So definitely things are looking like they're going to be on track. The only other thing I didn't mention in this video were potentially some prefrontal storms. Those are not of super high confidence right now, though. Can't be ruled out. And if we did see that, that would definitely lend itself towards some more upper echelon severe weather, including tornadoes, hail, and damaging winds. So that's really the only other thing to look out for. I think that's going to be a lot of nowcasting later today, right before the event. It's going to be a little bit harder to forecast on the cams, really going to be a lot more visual observations and stuff of observed data. So definitely want to be on the lookout for any tornado watches that might specify that.